Hello to everyone. Welcome to the webinar Tech Transforming Public Transit Opportunities for Africa. My name is Urša Hribernik and I'm the head of mobility at Elleithy Transit, a global transit technology provider. So African cities are one of the fastest growing in the world, and this brings several transportation challenges as well as a lot of pressure on existing infrastructure. Therefore, several African cities have started either consolidating informal operators into formal public transit or building new BRT lines. And we are here today to hear different perspectives on how technology can help establish and improve public transit in order to make cities more livable and sustainable. And our first speaker is Fátima Arroyo. She is a senior urban transport specialist at the World Bank. And she will talk about good and bad practices of fare collection implementation in Africa. Our second speaker is Nico McLachlan, Managing Director at ODA consultancy, transport consultancy based in South Africa that works on several projects all across the Africa. On the transit, on informal and public transit matters. Our third speaker is Ahmed Elleithy, VP Commercial at Mwasalat, Misr. He will talk how he and his team managed to implement several technologies at a very forward-thinking bus operator in Cairo he will share best practices that have proven very successful. And then also our Tomaz Racic, VP of Sales at Elleithy Transit. He will talk on how Leeds products and Leeds smart mobility solutions help improve public transit operations and ticketing all across Africa. So now, Fátima, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Urša, and thank you again for inviting me to present today. I am trying to, okay, I am not able to share my screen. Okay, so I'm gonna be doing a presentation. It's gonna be around. Can you see the full screen, or you see the?
It's not the full. It's the we can see. We can see several slides. So yeah, now it is. Now it's
fine.
It's
okay,
perfect.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So so as I was saying, thank you so much, Urša, for inviting me to present today. So I'm going to be doing a presentation between 10 and 15 minutes about a study that we have been developing in the last few months for SSATP. SSATP, it is a multi-donor trust fund in the African context. It's the acronym of the Africa Transport Policy Program that aims to build knowledge and then to share knowledge between different African countries. So the study that we have been doing in the last months, it has been to study what has been the main innovations and trends that have been happening in fare payment systems in sub-Saharan Africa, and to ask ourselves a series of critical questions that can help policymakers and private sector to make decisions in the sector. So I would like also to acknowledge the work from the colleagues from Philip, Brendan, Justin, and Chantal, who were part of this study. So the presentation has three parts. One first part where I'm going to do a brief introduction about the objective of of this study. A second part when I'm going to talk about the three perspectives that we used to analyze the different case studies that we have been that we have studied, and the third part, a key observations and answer to few critical questions on first systems in sub-Saharan Africa. So first on the introduction, so the purpose of this study it is to inform the development of African fair payment systems, and for that, what we did, it was to identify 6 relevant case studies in the African context. Study these case studies in detail to gain an understanding and an insight about what are the emerging landscape for payment in public transport, and with that identify what are the key trends and lessons learned from that experience. The 6 case studies that we analyzed were the case studies from Cape Town, Kigali, Lagos, Maputo, Nairobi, which are 5 case studies from the African context, and we also selected one case study from India that we thought it was interesting because it brought an innovative change of business model also that could have potential for the African context. So in each of these cities, we focus in particular first system and analyze this using the framework that I'm going to be just presenting here. So each of these case studies, so each of these 6 case studies were analyzed under 3 key dimensions. And here what we felt it is that often we see the analysis of the fair collection system more through more seen like a technological challenge, no? So here we wanted to broaden a little bit that analysis, and as we analyze the technological changes, we also wanted to understand what are the organizational and institutional implications and changes that happen when fair collection is implemented, and also we wanted to analyze the fair collection systems from the angle of the mainstreaming of paratransit. This dimension of paratransit might be considered maybe not at a clear cross-cutting issue, but we wanted to focus in this dimension because of the great importance for the sub-Saharan context. Something also that we also another important organizational and institutional changes that we wanted to analyze, it is the growth and emergence of specialized firms that provide first system service compared to the more traditional view of first systems that is a core element of public transport. And we also wanted to analyze how the role of the transport authorities had been playing into the implementation of these fare collection systems. So first, from a technological perspective, what we have seen it is that the transport smart card technologies have been developed during the last 20 years. Is not like a new technology, but it's a technology that continue to be very present in public transport, and it was developed on the back of the credit and debit card industry. There is different types of systems that can be put in place. In the African context, we have seen that many times we tend to have more like closed systems, and one of the key reasons is actually the limitations on the connectivity of the local network to be able to have an open system. However, there are some exceptions. For example, the case of Maputo. A very important technological change that we have been seeing on fare collection, it is the the very, very important growth of phones in the for payment. And I think the African context is actually a very interesting example how payments using phones are actually very common for a lot of services, but there are actually at this point just few cases where this is being used for public transport. I think the probably the most famous one, the one that most of the people know, it is the case of M-Pesa that was developed and implemented first broadly in the context of Kenya, but after at some point more particularly for public transport. And what we are seeing is that the payment using mobile phone is now growing massively, led actually by China, and there is a series of new business models that are being developed around the phone payment that we will discuss later on. Regarding the organizational and institutional side, so what we see here is that changes on technology actually are extremely important, but what it needs to come together with it is also changes in business models and changes in organization. And these changes, what we have seen, it is very much linked on how the risk, and in particular the revenue risk, is allocated. So introducing a fair collection system might actually change the risk allocation and change also the power dynamics between different stakeholders. And this is a critical dimensions that we have analyzed in the case studies. And this table is just to show the different possibilities of risk allocation. And I will also say that we should see this more like a spectrum and not maybe like a very rigid allocation of risk, but we can be in between these different risk allocation that we present here. So I think the key point on talking about the risk allocation, it is that the risk allocation is going to be influencing the incentives in the sector, and is going to be very much influencing actually also the acceptance of fair collection for different stakeholders that might be actually winning or losing from the introduction of fair collection. And on the dimension of mainstreaming of paratransit, so I mean, I think this all of us have recognized, and Nursa has mentioned earlier, the importance of the informal sector or paratransit in African cities. And there has been an important recognition in the last year about the importance to improve the informal sector, and this contrasts with I think the view that the sector had some years ago, where actually the informal sector was seen as an inferior mode of transport that needed to be replaced. Now we are seeing more the informal sector as a sector that has a lot of benefits in the way they are flexible, they are entrepreneurs, and there are opportunities actually to improve and to improve the system. And here we see that fair collection can bring interesting opportunities to improve paratransit, although from the examples that we have seen in the region, the changes actually of incentives and the incentives and the benefits from paratransit need to be also well considered when defining the fair collection system. So this is the third part of the presentation, and the last part, where we wanted to to present what has been the key observations of after analyzing the 6 case studies. I'm not going to present in detail the case studies, but we are going to have soon the report in the SSATP website, and you'll be able to see more detail all this information. So this last section, we wanted to organize it in a way that brings a series of critical questions that we have asked ourselves to define, to guide and to support policymakers in the Africa region on the decisions about fair collection. So these questions are mentioned here. So the first question, it is a very fundamental one. It's, are automated fair systems worth it? The second, it is if actually the most significant trend that we are seeing in fair collection is a technological trend. The third is implementing new fair systems is primarily a technological challenge. If paratransit might be improved by implementing automated fair systems. And the last question is what role should the government play in the implementation of fair systems? So the first questions, if fair systems are worth it, I think there is a general assumption that fair systems are worth it and can bring very important benefits for the efficiency of the public transport, for the convenience of the users. However, what we have seen in the different case studies, it is that many times there is not a real clarity about the objectives and a realism about the benefits that fair collection is going to be able to deliver. And what we have also seen it is that in many instances, cash remains the most convenient medium for many users. In an African context, for example, many users are not able to recharge smart card or freight payment with several trips because of an affordability issue. And actually, for every transaction they do to recharge, there might be only one trip, they need to pay a fee. So this actually could penalize the most low-income part of the population. And it might be one of the reasons they might not find it very convenient. Sometimes it's because of the recharging of the first system, etc. So with this, we want to mean here it is that the fair systems, the automated fair systems can bring benefits, but we need to be also realistic and very objective about the context in the African cities. Something that we have seen that in all the case studies that can bring very important benefits, it is how these fair systems can improve actually the transparency and the data provided on fair collection. And actually this is very important to improve bankability, and then to have a transparent accounting system on that, then the private sector can go and access, for example, financing for the sector. The second question is what is the most significant technological trends? Here, what we have seen it is the smart cards continue to be broadly used in the African context. We see that mobile phones and especially smartphones have the potential to offer a much wider functionality for than smart cards, and we are seeing in different case studies that is being more and more used. However, here also a point of caution, and there is still quite a lot of users in the African context that don't have smartphones or might not feel comfortable using them. So this is also an important dimension while designing fair collection systems. And there has been also, as I mentioned before, the development up to now, it has been mainly focused on more like card-centric systems, more like closed systems. And there are just few examples of more account-based systems. So the proven of this approach, it's also something that we will be assess moving forward. I mean, I think the case of Maputo, for example, is one case of a account-based system. The third question is if implementing new first system is primarily a technological challenge. Here, what we have seen it is that the technological trends are indeed a very important trend and a challenge for the sector to introduce first systems. But even more important than that, it is how the transport operators work and affect the incentive structure and power relations when these fare collection systems are introduced. So in order to introduce these fare systems, it is very important to not only consider like a technological change, but it needs to design the first system aligned with the revenue risk in the system, no? And it's also important to know that these first systems is also likely to add much more value if the relationship are structured. So the interest of the first system owners are well aligned with improving the effectiveness of the transport business overall. And this is very much related also to what we were mentioning before about the risk allocations and the incentives that this brings to the system. The fourth question is if paratransit can be improved by implementing automated fare systems. So here the answer is yes, but what we have seen is that there has been some attempts in this direction in the region, and there has been mixed results in that regard. And this actually is due to the fact that changes and improvement of paratransit requires a changes in business models that enable the change from these individual operations to a more collective management on fleet and on the pool of funds generated through the fare collection. So although fare collection can be extremely important to support this formalization or improvement of the paratransit, it should come together with a clear business model that it's also well accepted by paratransit. And the last question, it is what role should have government in the implementation of fare systems. Here, what we have seen is that often national and central governments have the resources and the political power to initiate these changes in fare systems. However, from the cases that we have analyzed, we have also seen that citywide municipalities or transport authorities are key in the success of the implementation of this fare collection system, and in many of the cases actually the fare collection system was initiated by the authorities, such as is the case of Lagos or the case of Maputo, and also I mean in the case of the city of Cape Town, it was a citywide municipality. So the way we see it here, it is that there is a role for central government to support these improvements in the first systems. However, there is a very important and maybe key role more at the local level or at the authority level to be able to drive and to implement these fare collection systems. So with this, I just finish here my presentation. We are going to be soon publishing this report in the SSATP website, so please check in our website for more information coming soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fátima. It's a really great analysis of the fare collection implementation market. And I think, I mean, you did a great job, and also it will be very useful to several transit agencies that are deciding whether to go for fare collection or not, and how to implement it. So it will save them a lot of costs probably and struggle. Now actually we should continue with Nico's presentation. Nico will provide insight into the design and implementation of paratransit-based BRT system in Cape Town and Johannesburg. And he will also discuss design of the second generation scheduled bus services in the city of Kigali. So Nico, Zoom is yours.
Thank you, Usa. Number one, am I audible? Number two, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, everything
Perfect.
works perfect.
Thank you. I just noted that during Fátima's presentation, one of the colleagues participating from, I think, the US asked a very basic question, which is the definition of paratransit in Africa the same as we have it in the US? And I was wondering whether Roger Behrens or one of the other participants could maybe just answer that question, because I think it's such a fundamental issue in terms of what do we mean when we talk about paratransit in a sub-Saharan African context. Thank you, Ursa, to you and your team for inviting me to participate in this presentation. The time is limited, so please accept that maybe some of the concepts I'm going to put across is rather crude and may elicit debate. And I think that is exactly what we want in a webinar of this nature. So just to say that the focus of our business here at ODA, Cape Town, South Africa, is really to assist in improving the paratransit business model, and in doing so, hopefully enabling the paratransit sector in sub-Saharan Africa to play a more meaningful role in large-scale urban mobility improvement projects and not be marginalized when we contemplate these large-scale urban mobility improvements. In terms of the structure of my brief input, I'm going to talk very briefly about what I regard as yesterday's agenda with public transport or improvement in sub-Saharan Africa. And I'm going to take you back to roughly a decade ago with the introduction of the BRT system, specifically in the cities of Cape Town and Johannesburg, where we've been intimately involved. Then I'm going to speak very briefly about what I regard as the emerging agenda. And I think Fátima's presentation dealt with one element of the emerging agenda. Maybe I'd like to zoom out a little bit more and talk about the broader elements of the emerging agenda. Then for those interested in tech and transit, which I suppose is the majority of the audience, I'd like to venture a few opinions about the agenda of the near future, looking at it from a paratransit improvement point of view, and then finally just to ask what are the implications for transit-based tech service providers, etc., coming from this, from the angle that I have, which is intimate involvement in attempts at paratransit sector improvement and attempts at preparing the paratransit for better participation in large-scale urban mobility improvements in sub-Saharan cities in Africa. So, what was yesterday's agenda? And I'm just going to use a very simple slide, Osa, to depict yesterday's agenda. And in particular, the way in which BRT a decade ago, a little more than a decade ago, was brought to South Africa, Cape Town and Johannesburg in particular, was really premised on 100% replacement of the incumbent paratransit or minibus taxi supply on the routes or corridors where the BRT plan was supposed to be implemented. So I think in hindsight, the South African implementation model in Cape Town and Johannesburg in particular, somehow we actually mastered that challenge, and we successfully, albeit at some cost, introduced BRT systems that are today still running fairly well. However, the net result a decade or so down the line is that in both the Cape Town and Johannesburg BRT implementation processes, these systems today only impact on about 5% of the overall demand in these two significant cities, cost recovery on these systems based on fare revenue, on average less than 50%. Of course, that varies between trunk services and feeder distributor services. And where have we ended up? Well, we've ended up in a place that Pablo Salazar Ferro, Roger Behrens, and others would say, we've ended up with a de facto hybrid model, i.e. minibus taxi paratransit operators have come back increasingly over the last 5-6 years into the parts of the system, part of the network on which the BRT operates. In the case of Cape Town, because structurally a year or so into the first long-term contract, 12-year contract, the contracting authority actually moderated the BRT system downwards in order to lower the impact on the local taxpayer. So as a result of that, we have the minibus taxi industry actually coming back to deal with surplus demand, both in the peak and the in-peak periods. So we've ended up with a hybrid system. Very interesting. If you speak to the planners in the city of Cape Town today, they are now in fact planning for what Salazar Ferro would call a de jure hybrid system. So let's plan for an integration of the minibus taxi into the BRT, predominantly in the feeder distributor component of the BRT as we go forward. Big lesson learned. Took us 10 years to learn that lesson in Cape Town. So if that was yesterday's agenda, and by the way, the tech at the time, AFC, APTMS, all of these things went into the bottom part of my picture, not the top part of the picture. We, in fact, determined the impact on the minibus taxi industry, etc., with very basic tools and technology at our disposal. So if that was the situation 10 years ago, what happened in the ensuing period? What is the emerging agenda in sub-Saharan Africa around public transport improvement now? Well, I'm going to use two slides, and those of you who are not familiar with the main sub-Saharan cities, you are looking at a place called Old Taxi Park, and there's a place next door called New Taxi Park, and both these places are in downtown Kampala, Uganda. So the first question that should come to your mind is, how does anybody get out there? The second slide I'm going to use is a kind of a drone picture taken in a location called Mitchell's Plain, which is a suburb of Cape Town, about 35 kilometers to the southeast of Cape Town center. And this is where between 2017 and 2019, my team worked with the city of Cape Town on a business improvement model, essentially, Fátima, picking up on some of the points you made, shifting this typical feeder distributor minibus taxi operation, shifting them from a fill and go system to a scheduled services system. And what the drone pic shows you is how we've used the infrastructure provided by the public authority to create what we call in sort of colloquial speak, a stacking model where the vehicles stack and then we could schedule the operation from there. Suffice to say, the results we achieved, apart from running at 2-minute headways in the AM and PM peak, and actually structuring supply to almost to the T mirror demand manifestation, these very, very impressive results were achieved in that shift from fill and go to scheduled in a typical feeder distributor environment. We reduced the fleet size, as you can see, from 78 to 32 vehicles, with 6 in spare. So let's say in the end, we operated around 40 vehicles, almost a 50% reduction or 50% reduction in fleet size. That resulted in a 45% reduction in fuel consumption. This project ran, by the way, for a period of 20 months. So the pilot monitoring information we have on the shift to the scheduled services actually for a period of 20 months. We, interesting enough, could extend the routes, the coverage of the service from 3 to 5 routes. And very importantly, in terms of the whole quest for decent work in the paratransit sector, we reduced the average driver workday from a more than 12-hour average day to a 7.5-hour day, with a structured break in his day and also a 1 day off in a typical operating 7-day week cycle. So these are the results we achieved in moving from what we still see in many cities, Accra, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kampala. And this is just to show that the quest for business improvement is very, very much part of the existing agenda in sub-Saharan African cities. Now, while we were doing this project in Cape Town, pilot project in Cape Town 2017, we started. A couple of years earlier, in 2013, the Rwanda Utilities Regulatory Authority, RURA, together with the city of Kigali, the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport, and a few other actors, started a very important process of, in their way, improving in, I think, quite broad brush strokes, the current paratransit supply, which my understanding, and I never experienced Kigali prior to 2013, but my understanding is that we effectively had paratransit operators competing in what one, I think, can best describe as a kind of destructive competitive way for the passenger. And what the regulatory authority did was it introduced three important shifts. And again, I see reference to AC Group's fare collection system in the previous presentation. But the three important shifts that was introduced in 2013 in Kigali needs to be understood in terms of both the combination of those shifts and therefore the impact of the combined effect of the shifts. Number one, they shifted the paratransit supply model into three zones. And the regulator, in our view, quite cleverly used the existing, if I can call it, organic footprint of how the paratransit sector had organized itself. So they moved them into three zones, and by doing that, by the stroke of a pen, effectively shifted the focus of competition for the passenger to competition and protection of the zone and the routes inside the zone. Very constructive shift. The second shift that was introduced, trying to depict this in the two bottom parts of the slide, they also compelled the operators to move in a structured way, in a targeted way, over a first 5-year contract period, away from only having minibuses to moving to midi-buses, left-hand side of the bottom picture, and standard buses, right-hand side of the bottom picture. And then, to crown it all, they said, we're also going to help you to move from cash to cashless, which is a pursuit in general in Rwanda. So in 2018, beginning of 2019, I was part of a team who was appointed to assist the authorities in Kigali to tackle the next shift in the transition process. And that is a shift from unscheduled to scheduled services. And of course, because the zonal logic was there and had been in place for 4 or 5 years, and because there'd been a huge progression in the shift from cash to cashless, we not only had the benefit of the zonal system and the kind of operating logic that had evolved over that 5-year period, but also very, very rich travel demand data that emanated from the AC Group system. Fairly rudimentary system, it's a tap and go, it's a flat fare, it's not the most advanced technology in the world, but the fact that that had been in operation and had evolved over a 5-year period provided us with enormous amount of data, on the back of which we could progress towards the design of a scheduled service. So just to say, these initiatives were happening while mostly the focus and what everybody has been talking about and documenting has been on the sort of the Big Bang BRT implementation, which had very limited effects that have been implemented. Now, if that's what's happened in the sort of the period, the last 10 years or so, then what does this mean for tech and for public transport reform in African cities in the immediate future? And I have to say, in the transport space, we do this sort of long-term stuff. But what is the immediate future? And for me, working in business improvement, anything from 1,000 days, 3 years, to 5 years, 60 months. So that's more or less the time frame. Roger, it's also a point that when you get to my age, you don't think in 10 and 20 year cycles anymore. So I'm talking immediate future, 3 to 5 years. That's really where my focus is. And as we speak, some of these things are obviously unfolding as we speak. So I foresee an increased focus from you, the tech service providers, on the paratransit sector in sub-Saharan Africa, and in particular on route mapping, getting to grips with the current supply and demand data pertaining to the paratransit sector. And where I'm particularly interested in is revenue and cost data. How do these businesses function? Do they in fact make money, etc.? So these are the building blocks, and what you're looking at is something that all of you are very familiar with nowadays with onboard mobile phone technology. All of this has become possible. 10 years ago, believe it or not, we did not have access to the kind of tech we have access to, certainly in sub-Saharan Africa that we have now. So, linked with that, I think one can anticipate a shift towards the need for formalization. And in most sub-Saharan cities, even the cities where we have very limited formal regulation, my experience certainly is that we do have formalization. And by formalization, I don't mean corporate entities, but I do mean organization of the paratransit industry, which could range from, collectives, the SACCO model, etc. But the industry organizing itself and almost introducing self-regulation in the absence of formal public authority regulation. I think as data becomes more apparent and as an understanding of the imbalance between supply and demand in these systems becomes more apparent, we should anticipate a quest for regulation, which is not necessarily limited or driven by authorities only. In fact, my experience working in Kampala at the moment is that the more attention we give to formalization, the more the paratransit sector is in fact pushing the regulation agenda. So with an improvement in the regulation and formalization, one can anticipate an improvement and hopefully more legitimacy around enforcement processes. Everybody who's worked in this space in sub-Saharan Africa will know that enforcement, exploitation, corruption and bribery goes hand in hand. And one hopes that the data sets that we can build, the technology that we can bring into the world of regulation and enforcement will play a big role in enhancing the legitimacy of enforcement systems. You are looking at the moment, the standard recapitalization vehicle. It's called the Toyota Quantum, or Sesfikile is the sort of colloquial term. And I think the other shift that will come out of a better understanding of supply and demand, an understanding of the need for business improvement in order to be a meaningful actor, is in fact a shift towards recapitalization. The most requests I've been receiving in the last month after a work session we had about 6 weeks ago in Kampala, most of the requests are requests for information on alternative vehicle types and a shift to higher occupancy vehicles. This is coming inherently from within the paratransit sector. I'm not saying this is the vehicle to transition to. Of course, this opens the agenda around green energy, e-mobility, etc., etc. This is another big trend that's coming up. You in the tech world will know what to do around this trend. An improved understanding of passenger demand. And what you're looking at here is in fact an extract from a passenger survey that we did while we were doing that business improvement in Cape Town 2017 to 2019. There were about 700 passengers involved in two survey processes, sort of an ex ante and an ex post business improvements passenger survey. And what you see coming out of this, and this is typically active market, lower income households, where I would say the average household income would be in the region of 150 to 200 euros per month. And just look at the purpose here and what that tells us about travel demand. So getting down to this level of understanding of travel demand, I think is a big unexplored element of work to be done in sub-Saharan cities. Very interesting. We think multimodality is things that planners dream up and we design and fancy map books. No, multimodality in our experience, having worked on the business improvement in Cape Town, is in fact an inherent part of the logic. We're fortunate in a city like Cape Town, we still have a reasonable scheduled bus operation. As you can see, our rail service has gone down dramatically. But look at the connecting passenger logic here. So what we find is we tested with the passengers in this survey, their willingness to use alternative payment methods. And Fátima, I have shared this information with some of your team members recently. We effectively tested the willingness in this sort of lower income captive market audience to shift to alternative payment methods. And we asked questions both on willingness to move to the mobile phone as a method of payment and willingness to move to near field connection cards as an alternative method of payment. Now, the results we got, which is depicted in the two pie charts, which we've now unfortunately lost, 22% of the passengers surveyed indicated that they would shift to the mobile phone as a method of payment. 3% of those said we don't have mobile phones. Now, we have to qualify that result by saying people might have misunderstood that you require a smartphone, which is not something that is pervasive in that captive audience. And then secondly, those people who do have smartphones lock them up and leave them at home because of fear of theft. So 22%, I'm told by my tech partners that in terms of the kind of S-shaped curve, in terms of early adapters and that kind of thing, the 22% is quite a significant early adapter uptake. But what was interesting was the question whether or not people would be willing to shift from cash to NFC card, and 39% said yes. 1% said they don't have an NFC card. The context here, Ursa, of course, is that the social grant in South Africa is paid through a debit card. And I think what we read into that result is that what retailers and others have started doing is started creating e-wallets on this debit card, on the social grant debit card. So I think what the 39% uptake there shows is that people have become accustomed to the fact that their social grant debit card can in fact be used for different payment purposes. So my final slide is, what is the focus for the immediate future? Fare management. As we move from cash to cashless in the paratransit sector, this is very much on the immediate agenda. Number one, the management of cash becomes an issue. But of course, interoperability is more and more a reality and better understood. So a big focus on fare management systems, and I think an evolution of the fare management systems from what we have now to fare management systems that are not costly, easy to understand, and that both serve the formalization of the paratransit sector and all the other things that cashless fare system should do. From my perspective, focus on business improvement, fleet management technologies, targeting the paratransit operation, both the current vehicle and the future vehicles to which we will be recapitalizing, very important. And then demand management and passenger information systems. I think those would be, I'm not a tech specialist, but I do understand the process of business improvement and making the paratransit sector relevant to these big initiatives that we take on. So fare management, fleet management, and passenger information systems. Thank you very much, Ursa. Sorry we lost connection there right towards the end. Thank you.
No worries, Nico. I apologize, but I couldn't get the presentation now. So anyways, an amazing presentation. You have like extensive experience, and definitely fleet management systems, fare collection, and passenger information systems are a way to go. I think Ahmed and Tomaz will talk more about it. Also, the important thing that you brought out, like the importance of the analysis and the data that is available today, it's also crucial to be discussed at such a webinar. So thank you, Nico, for everything. A lot of enthusiasm was put into this presentation. And now we continue with Ahmed. Ahmed, are you ready? So Ahmed is VP Commercial at Mwasalat, Misr, very forward-thinking bus operator in Cairo. They have implemented several technologies a few years ago, and he will tell us their experience with the implementation and then also with usage of those technologies. Ahmed, are you ready?
Hi, Ersa, how are you?
Sorry?
Hi, Ersa, can you hear me well and can you see my screen?
We can hear you well.
All right. So I'd like to genuinely thank both Fátima and Nico for sharing their extensive insights on it really paves the way for my presentation to be in context and getting things done. So I'm Ahmed Elleithy, I'm VP Commercial for Mwasalat Misr, which literally translate to Public Transport of Egypt. And I will be talking today about how we used technologies in general and Elleity's solution in specific when it comes to Elleity control and monitor and predict to optimize our operations, and how we transformed ourselves from an operator into a mobility platform, I would like to say. So first of all, when it comes to Cairo, Cairo is big. So it is estimated that 25 million rides are made in Cairo every day with all modes combined, which makes Cairo one of the top 5, if not top or top 10 cities in terms of number of trips that are being done daily, because it's such a big hub where people living outside of these cities come into Cairo for work and other purposes every single day, and then come out at the end of the day.
Ahmed, we don't see your screen if you're sharing.
Cairo is also okay, sorry. Okay.
Now we see it.
So can you see my screen now?
Yes, perfect, perfect.
All right, sorry about that. So like I was saying, Cairo is, how do you, okay. How do you like unpin that? Anyway, so Cairo is a really big.
No, just go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry. If you need anything, just.
So Cairo is a really big city. Like I was saying, 25 million rides are estimated to be done every day, and that qualifies Egypt to be Cairo to be one of the top 10, if not top 5 cities in the world in terms of number of trips that are being made every single day. And Cairo is a city that has multiple modes of transport, from subway to city buses to what you would call taxis or boda bodas, or what we call here microbuses, to even ride-hailing apps. And Cairo was the first city in the world where Uber have launched their scheduled bus service with taxis here in Cairo. So it is one big city that has multiple modes. And the issue is that there has been, with all these entire modes, which you categorize into 2 groups, basically. A group that has low cost of using, but comes with low convenience and service quality, and another group that comes with a pricing that is too high for the common Egyptian, but comes with a little bit higher quality of service, that have created a stigma against public transport. And at Mwasalat Misr, we aim at filling this gap by providing a premium service, a premium scheduled public transport service that is targeted price-wise to the middle class so that majority of Egyptians can use it. And Mwasalat Misr is the first international investment in the field of public transport in Egypt. We represent an Emirati group called ENG, and we represent them in Egypt. So we started operations in 2018. A lot of achievements have been done since then. I'll just run through them. First of all, we were the first private operator to launch city buses that are wheelchair accessible, have onboard fare collection with passenger information, and also became the first Egyptian operator to be affiliated with UITP. We also successfully launched Mwasalat, which is a closed loop NFC onboard payment card. It's compatible with the subway network for interoperability. It has not been done yet, but it is ready for that. And one of the things that we have done to adopt for the local context is that we have integrated with very unique business model of companies that have points of sale that are placed at kiosks and supermarkets, where you could top up your cards or do cash-based, bank-based payments through the merchant sitting in the store. So instead of investing in DVMs and building our own infrastructure, we leveraged the existing infrastructure to allow users to be able to top up their cards. So every single stop on the network has at least 3 points of sale around them where you could top up your card. We've also introduced something that is quite unique to the African context, is that physical bus stops in Cairo are quite rare. And we've adopted what we call a virtual bus stop. These virtual bus stops we'll talk about them in extensiveness later on, but they have enabled us to understand where the people wait to use public transport. And this has enabled us to collect the data at the collective level and the anonymized individual level to have better understanding of transport demand data. We were also successful to be the first operator in Cairo to launch a fully electric bus in a consortium of 12 companies specialized to submit their proposals and their sustainable mobility solutions to new cities that we'll get to at the end of the presentation. And since this has been extensively brought on in the previous two presentations, just to have a different take on what the fill and go dilemma means for public transport. So these pictures are nowhere near unfamiliar. The same picture has been taken in Kampala because we've been visiting it earlier this year. It is the same pretty much everywhere. And since these modes of transport operate on a fill and go basis, what they create is something that is quite unique for cities. Most main stations are located at city centers. So let's say the daily commute is from home to school, and there is a bus line that goes through point A to point B and passes very close to their home. The logical thing to do is to get out of the home and take a bus directly to the school. What happens in reality, because the buses work on fill and go, it is almost impossible to be able to catch such a microbus or a minibus from that point. You need to take it from the very beginning. So what happens is that another trip with a different mode is done to the main station. You have to wait there and then take the bus from the very beginning at the station, and your trip will go up from anywhere between 60 and 90 minutes, because if you get to the bus stop at a stage where you're the last one going in, it will just move right away. However, if you are unlucky and you're the first one to sit in, you will have to be there up until everybody gets on bus. And this is fundamental to the traffic congestion issue in major cities such as Cairo, because most main stations are actually located at a central city district that spirals out, because most African cities are radial in nature. So we use of solutions such as Elleithy Control and Elleithy Monitor have been able to introduce something that is super innovative for the Egyptian culture, which is timetables. And when we introduce timetables, like having a scheduled service and focusing as an operator on scheduling and posting those schedules on social media for the public to use, surprisingly, we found out that people are still using the bus from the very first stop. This is actual data from our fare collection systems, and we can see that the phantom trips, the trips that take place to the very beginning of the line, are still happening. So it is not just like timetables that are being introduced and people relying on the service based on a schedule. This is apparently not enough. So when we embark upon AI-powered ETA provided by Elleithy Solutions that is used based on open APIs, we are able to transform this into a schedule adherence service to improve the schedule, the accuracy of our schedules, that would enable us to make schedules that are flexible enough to adopt to the new things happening in Cairo, traffic-wise. So I'd like to highlight how this affected our operations from three different angles. The first angle is the operator angle. So as an operator, we are being able to monitor historically and in real time what's going on in the street to be able to maintain good operations and good schedule adherence and good headway adherence. And we've also done that. We've populated the data through open APIs to Google Maps, and we were successful to be the first operator in the Middle East and Africa to integrate with Google Maps in real time, and that happened in 2018. But we often got feedback from our users that Google Maps is not really usable, because fundamentally Google Maps would share 3 pieces of information with the user on their app, because it is such a global thing that is not adapted to the local context. It will show you what was the scheduled time, and if there is a difference, it would show you how much it's delayed or how much it's early, and put a strike through this text, put how early or late the bus is, and then display when the bus is coming. So it was super confusing to our users. So what Elleithy has enabled us is to have different onboard devices or onboard units with different AFCs. And because Elleithy solutions are hardware agnostic, they are collecting this data, and people sitting in the operation control center don't even have to know which OBU is in which bus. Everything gets collected into Elleithy solution, and then it's disseminated to multiple channels. So what we've decided to do is that we need to add multiple channels to integrate the omni-channel collected data and disseminate it in an omni-channel manner as well. So we're revamping our app as we speak, and we have a new app that simply tells the user when the bus is coming to your nearest stop, and it's a single button app where you just click your location and it will show you when the bus is coming, as well as Google Maps and even chatbots. Because Elleithy solutions are built on open APIs, we have been able to integrate real-time ETA into channels such as WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. So no matter what the platform that the user is comfortable with using, we're in the business of getting people on the bus with their most comfortable platform. And we decided to invest in that area rather than investing in physical infrastructure of having physical bus stops, physical screens. We're just getting the information into the people's hands while they stay at home, while they stay at work, and they know the piece of information from their place of comfort without having the need to go physically on the street, look at the screen, and wait for the bus. And the third and most important part is how valuable this data is to governmental stakeholders, basically, be it ministries, be it municipalities, be it public transport regulators. We are presenting the people, the regulatory authorities that we're working with single page dashboards from Elleithy that would enable the key stakeholder to monitor what's going on, what is the status of public transport today, and what's happening in the city in real time with absolute reliability and accountability from the operator side. And this was surprisingly valuable surprising to us, that how valuable this data is to stakeholders. So this has helped us into transformation from a public transport operator into a real mobility platform for the African context. Mwasalat today is not just an operating company. We have an in-house tech solution company that is developing our own AFC that is going to be used across our fleet. We have launched a maintenance service company that would be able to do that. And since we're very tech-oriented, we have adopted an advertising agency under the group that is licensed to use the assets, whether technological, non-tangible assets, or the actual fleet, to use it as a generative revenue stream. And the network that we're running today that is connected across the entirety of Greater Cairo, connecting the Cairo, has enabled us to gain the trust of the government to be able to launch 3 strategic contracts that are long-term. And for the first time in Egypt, the contracts for public transport operations are not concession-based, but rather gross contracts and gross cost contracts and net cost contracts that are long-term and sustainable, and are not built on the competition for the customer, but are built on the competition for the best public transport scheduled service. So now what we have done is that we have 3 contracts with the Egyptian government, and these contracts, regardless of their business model, we're developing a seamless experience to our users. Our users are able to use the same e-payment solution across the entire network. They are able to plan their trip across the entire network, and they gain the same customer experience across the entire network, regardless of where the contract is coming and what the contractual format is. And this has enabled us to, again, gain the government's trust to be able to, as a company, collaborate and launch a joint venture with the Egyptian government to have a specific company that from the very beginning will be launching the public transport service within the new administrative capital. Egypt has a very ambitious project of constructing a new administrative capital east to the old city of Cairo that is pretty much as big as Singapore, and has a monorail system and an LRT system coming in, and we're part of this. And we've launched a long-term contract where we are exclusively operating and advising on the regulation of the operations in the new capital. Another thing is that we have strong partnerships with the Egyptian government and the Ministry of Transport to be the operating arm for the BRT project that is going on right now, and being in the construction phase for the ring road. And we're going to be operating the ring road BRT in a single 106-kilometer corridor. And lastly, we're partnering with one of the Egyptian companies that have very strong presence in Africa, and we're currently exploring how we could bring about the experiences that we've gained in an African context city that is as big as Greater Cairo into other cities such as Kampala or Accra. In short, Mwasalat Misr have grown from a single operator into an operator into a mobility platform that is capable of having multiple operating and verticals depending on different modes of transport that are based on a single payment management and fare collection solution, all into a single app with cross-mode companies that are serving these entire verticals, enabling us as Mwasalat to transform from an operator into an ecosystem. That was it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ahmed. A very holistic approach towards bus operations. I think you really covered everything from advertising to maintenance, technology, and also operations. Then, thank you so much. And now we continue with Tomaz's presentation. Tomaz, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah. So Tomaz is VP of Sales at Elleithy Transit, global transit technology provider, and he will talk more on our projects in Africa. how we implemented several different technologies to bus operators and agencies there. And he will lead you also through a live demonstration of smart mobility solutions by Elleithy Transit. So Tomaz, I'm seeing your screen, but I'm not seeing.
You're seeing Ahmed's screen still. Ahmed, can you please stop sharing so I can take over?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Sorry. Just 1 second, please. Okay. So first, also from my side, first a big thank you to Nico, Fátima, and Ahmed. You've very nicely paved the way for my presentation. So my name is Tomaz Racic, and I come from Elleithy Transit. We're a public transportation solution provider. We work around the world. We're present on all the continents and currently serve over 30,000 vehicles and over 5 billion trips annually with our fleet management, passenger information, and fare collection solutions. So in the last years, we were very active in seeing this and working in Africa. So what we have seen is there's been a quick growth of cities and urban areas, which brings with it, of course, increased need for usage of public transportation, but also challenges due to infrastructure not following this growth trend. And some of the issues we observe as a result of bad public transportation systems are high level of accidents, very worrying air pollution levels, but from the PTO side, also very high losses and not only for PTOs, but basically for the whole economy, high losses due to traffic congestion issues. We have seen relatively slow adoption rates of ITS systems in Africa, be it AVL, AFC, or PIS systems. And main reasons when analyzing this were resistance to change. There's perceived high implementation costs, lack of technical skill. We've seen relatively bad quality of data from public transportation, which is leading then to lack of systems flexibility, and of course, not well-established standards and service best practices. So we've asked ourselves, what can we do about it? How can we address those issues? And after analyzing the situation, we propose different solutions to address them. We had built full-fledged solutions for public transportation on all levels, from fleet management and fare collection and passenger information systems. What we've tried to do is we've tried to do them with customer in mind, which I think is something that Ahmed very nicely explained and shown on Mwasalat Masdar case. But we tried to go a step further and really try to address the issues that pertain to African continent. So all of our systems are hardware agnostic, meaning that we allow usage of legacy equipment, thus limiting the needed investment because we can connect to already existing equipment in the vehicles. We can utilize third-party data sources and function also with very limited data sets, which is a recurring situation that we've found in Africa. All of the solutions that we provide are completely modular, allowing very easy fit to any needed designs and any needed requirements of certain PTOs or PTAs or other customers that we serve. Our systems can support different business models, and of course, we allow for easy implementation and setup with quite short learning curve by the users because the systems were built together with them. So currently in Africa, we are serving Mwasalat Mazar in Egypt that Ahmed so nicely presented. We are supporting Lamata in Lagos in Nigeria for their BRT project. And we support in Mauritius the National Transit Authority with the first fleet management solution and mobile journey planner in Mauritius. So let's quickly see what our systems provide and which services we can offer. So on the back office side, we can provide 360 steps awareness for the control center support with dashboards to check overall performance, then more detailed bus and route performances, geo monitoring, so map views of all of the events and buses and vehicles and everything that is happening there, as well as logical diagrams showing the performance of buses on certain routes with their schedule adherences, headway adherences, communication capabilities, incident modes, and more. If there's a driver console installed, then we can also provide solutions and services to the driver automatically from the system. So again, the driver can get information on his schedule adherence. He can get information from the control center. There's full messaging supported, as well as two-way calling possible, incident modes, and many other services that we can provide to the drivers. Systems provided by Elleithy can function with a basic mode. So as we said, basically tracking and information on scheduled and headway adherences, but we can also cover and include all kinds of other functionalities, such as CCTVs, audio announcements, support for destination signs, onboard passenger information displays, and lots of other sensors and sensoric equipment that is possible there, from ADAS sensors and similar. Everything that we offer is fully modular, and it allows for a phased approach or later expansions based on needs and capabilities of our clients. So let us now check a short overview of functionalities we can provide, even if we're taking the data from legacy systems or equipment. So even if the data that we are getting into the system does not come from our hardware. So at the beginning, what we offer is at the beginning, we offer general dashboards with general overview on operational information, on scheduled trips, on the fleet that is operating, all of the planned data and actual performance. We show schedule adherence by trip start, by trip end, and real-time schedule adherence. We show routes with the biggest issues. We can provide logical diagrams, again, with very clearly marked schedule adherences, headway adherences, positioning of the bus, and as Ahmed showed before, real-time recalculation of estimated time of arrivals that can then be disseminated to any passenger displays. Same information is also given for the bus stops, where we can show and provide information on which buses are coming, how far they are, and when they will reach certain position. The system includes a very strong map replay terminal, allowing the operator to see any event that has happened on the bus when the bus was driving. So you can control all of the historical trips, see every bell push, every door opening, every brake push, acceleration, and similar. We log different events, so you can monitor driver behavior, you can monitor geofence entering and exits, you can record stops as skip stops and similar. If the buses are connected to CAN bus, then we can also provide the CAN bus data and show all of these events, events in this replay terminal. We've seen in Africa, and this has been mentioned in other presentations as well, that there's been a rapidly growing smartphone penetration, that usage of mobile phones is increasing really rapidly. And according to the last information that we have, there's over 200 million smartphones in Africa today, which of course opens new possibilities for usage of applications also in public transportation. So Elleithy provides a fully flexible and modular mobile solution covering both journey planning as well as fare collection and payment capabilities with multi-language support and very easy integration of additional plugins, plus lots of fully documented APIs for connection to other services or for getting data from other data sets. In our system, both major OSs are supported, so for Android and iOS, but also for a web portal, so basically enabling the usage of the system and control of all the functionalities through any major browser on any computer. Let me now quickly check the mobile functionalities. So as we said, the data comes from APIs, so we can easily build this into a third-party app as well. The systems allow for creating an account and logging in. You then select the destination and your current position, and the system will calculate different options for your travel. You can search and filter by fastest, shortest, cheapest option. And the system will provide you the information of where you need to switch buses or if you need to walk and similar. You can also see different routes that are available to you. You can see the full system and all routes that are available to the system. And you can filter and check and see. You can control information per route, see all of the schedules. For the buses that are not yet running. For the buses that are running, we always provide the real-time estimated time of arrival that is directly fed into the app. You can also, of course, plan your future trips by selecting where you want to go, at what time, what date, and the system will recalculate the best route for you to take. Within the system, we also have connected fare collection and payment methods. So if there's an account-based system, then you can top up your account, your e-wallet, and we provide, of course, then validation through these mobile apps. You can either buy a one-time ticket or use any kind of other tickets that are available in the system, such as weekly and monthly tickets, as mentioned by Fátima before. Plus, we allow for connection of these accounts. So you can connect, let's say, your kid's account to yours and then control or pay for his or her tickets through your wallet and through your account. Or this can also be used by employers to cover transportation for their employees. So as we've said, the basic idea is to slowly start moving away from cash payments. And this in public transportation is, of course, a process, but one that brings lots of benefits. Statistics show that when paying with cash, there is a significant amount of revenues lost through different kinds of fraud. And by using contactless ticketing, we can reduce cost of cash handling, significantly speed up boarding and dwell times, and significantly reduce ticket management and infrastructure costs of such systems. In the fare collection systems that Elleithy provides, this system is also completely modular and open and supports, through it we can support any kind of fare matrix, so from flat fare to distance-based to zonal-based, or a combination of those if different modes of transportation that the operator is serving use different kinds. And we support payments with any fare media, be it cash or smart cards, credit cards, mobile ticketing, or similar. And of course, the infrastructure for payment or for validation of this can include either mobile POSs, gates, ticket vending machine, validators, or similar. So completely open and completely modular approach to fare collection and payment. So let me just quickly show you then the back office of the fare collection system. At the beginning, we also provide you a dashboard with full information on the devices that are included in the system, with color-coded information if certain devices are malfunctioning and need to be either replaced or serviced. The system then includes lots of modules such as inspections, management, transaction management, loyalty programs, and similar. But probably the most important part is the fare management aspect, where we offer the test configuration where you can set everything up, and then the active configuration that is being pushed to all of the equipment that is set up on the vehicles. And we allow for creation of transportation actors, setting up the infrastructure, defining all of the products, and then creating the fare matrix, where different transportation actors can have different prices, allowing for very easy setup and management of this. The system also comes embedded with a very strong business intelligence tool, enabling very strong reporting capabilities, where we provide all kinds of reportings from revenue reports that we can show either by fare media, by routes, by buses, search by revenues, and all of this, of course, is filterable, and you can create any kind of overviews that you would need. We can provide information on passenger rights or on ticketing. So again, information on ticketing, be it either for the operator or for the transit agency, to be shown either per bus or through time, through different tickets or through different fare media. So all of this information is very easily and nicely provided through graphical interfaces. So let's say it's easy to see how many tickets were sold per day or during the day, during a certain hour, what was the success of validations, full statistics on validations and which kind of tickets or which kind of products were validated. And again, as Ahmed mentioned before, so information for the PTAs, let's say if different operators are serving same routes, we can provide reporting capabilities on amount of passengers that traveled or amount of revenues received and collected or validations made on these different routes per operators. So as we are running out of time, I would like to thank you and like to conclude my presentation with this. We would be happy to arrange a demo or give you more information if you're interested. So please do get in touch through any of the information channels shared on the screen, or ping me directly through email or phone, and we'd be more than happy to give you more info. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tomaz. And time for the Q&A. We have some questions here. Actually, Nico apologized because he has another meeting now. So if anyone has more questions for Nico, you can forward them to us or directly to Nico. And he will be glad to answer them. Let's see the questions. Hi, Ahmed, which kind of relation or partnership did you set up with UNDP? What role did they play for success of your project?
Well, if I were to share the progress, because it's not a simple answer. At the very beginning, it's a regular concession contract competition for passenger contract, where we did everything ourselves as a private operator. It was more or less a proof of concept to the regulator that this can work. And as we speak, regulator that has been recently formed, which is the Land Transport Regulation Authority under the Ministry of Transport, is currently launching a consultancy project for the setup and specification for the unified transport card for Cairo. And we are currently the only operator that has NFC-based e-payment in terms of public transport other than the subway. So if I were to say something, more often than not, this idea has been presented to the Egyptian government without actually showing that this would work. And I believe that some courageous entrepreneur, public transport investor, must come in and make some sort of a proof of concept that this will work in the African context, and then proceed with the government, showing them the real value of what this can bring to the city as a whole.
Perfect. Yeah, and how did you manage the fees that transport operators should pay to the regulatory authority per ticket? Do you have an automated direct collection by regulator from ticket without need for operators or drivers to monthly go and do payment? So for
this is not how it works.
Paratransit as well as public transit. So
yeah, this is not how it works. It's not a payment per transactions thing that happens at the end of the month or whatever. It's a very different setup. So, but we do have an automated fare collection system on board.
Great. And okay, there would be companies interested in your integration cases with WhatsApp and ads, but probably you've seen that. And then Tomaz, in Africa, we face an issue during riots. Public buses are mostly facing attacks, sabotage. Is such kind of event prevention implemented with Elleithy platform?
Well, it's hard to know where you will be attacked, but the system as such is flexible enough to allow for very easy creation of deviations, or so you can quite easily change the routes of where your buses should go. And on the other hand, you have, I think, very importantly, very strong communication channel towards the drivers and towards the buses, where the control center can communicate either with one driver or all the drivers on a certain route, or even the full fleet, either through messaging or through voice call, or by pre-recorded messages. So basically, it's very easy to inform all the drivers if something is happening, letting them know that maybe they should change the route or switch something. It's maybe not directly related or directly connected to having riots, but it allows the control center and the operator to basically very quickly react if such an incident occurs.
Okay, great. And here is another one. Can any of Elleithy systems be integrated for the boat or river services in Africa?
Yeah, so to us, the vehicle as such is not important. It's about creating the route and then tracking it. We could support that as well.
Okay, great. And so would you, I'm not sure to whom it is addressed, but like, would you say that scheduled transit services are legacy systems, and thus we need to adopt more on-demand routing solutions where the passenger is actually determining the time she wants to travel? What's your experience on the African market? How flexible should be the routes, or shall we go in direction scheduled services that actually Nico presented, or more personalized travel options?
Well, Ahmed, if I may first, but I'd really be interested in your opinion as well. I think we're going into a combination of both, right? So the scheduled services are there to stay at least for the foreseeable future. But of course, there is a segment of the market that is looking for or could significantly benefit from the on-demand transportation, and of course operators that will include this into their services will have an advantage. And what Elleithy provides here is a real-time information and a real-time ETA calculation, allowing for such on-demand services to be able to happen.
Ahmed, do you have anything to add, maybe?
Just to put Tomaz's answer into a more solid form, is that it's a matter of population and scatteredness thing. So if the population is very dense and they move in certain corridors that are defined by the city, then scheduled services are there to go, because mostly on-demand services and personalized travel is associated with the smaller vehicles that are at maximum has a capacity of 7 passengers at a time. So this is extremely beneficial and extremely economically viable in new communities, scarce, low-density communities. But when it comes to major cities and daily commutes across corridors, I don't think that on-demand personalized travel will be economically viable for the passenger anytime soon. It doesn't make sense from an operational standpoint. But again, what we're providing at Mwasalat Misr is that we confirm that personalized travel is much more convenient. And we have actually implemented concepts such as park and ride and kiss and ride, where we have parking lots for the end user who has a car to come with their car and park their car in the terminal station. So in short, a private car is a personalized travel option. However, the end user does not take this mode of transport for their entire route because it's either expensive, uncomfortable. They would use their time in a different setup. So be it e-scooters, cars, flexible routing, buses and vans, some part of the trip, especially for long distance, large corridor trips, will remain to be based on schedules, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Great. And here another one. Fátima, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm connected. Yes.
Great. Here's just like one question for you regarding the fees that transport operators should pay to the regulatory authority. Did you have maybe any scheme in mind when you did the analysis, how actually division or organization of the, let's say, ticketing bodies should be in a city? In a way, if there should be like a central regulatory authority to manage and collect fees, or is there are there other best practices that are there?
Yeah, so I think the collection of funds, there is an evidence from I mean, I think that the experience in the region and globally about the benefits of having a collecting a pool of funds that are collected rather than being individually collected by the different operators. So there is definitely a benefit of having this collected pool of fare collection. I think an important element also to define the structure for the fare collection is also how risks are allocated, or especially the demand risk. Who is taking that risk will have more interest that the fare collection will be maximized. So we'll have more interest on managing and having more control under the fare collection system. So I think it will depend case by case on how to structure it, and I believe it will depend a lot on how the risk, especially the demand risk, is allocated in the specific context.
Great, thank you. And with special focus on Lagos public transportation, how can we implement 80% scheduled bus operation using the ITS model, factoring the traffic dynamism? We can't hear you, Tomaz.
Sorry. Yeah, I saw I was muted. Apologies. No, so we know that Lagos is one of the cities with probably the biggest congestion issues and problems, but the logic is the same. Once the vehicles are fitted with tracking devices, and the data fed into the platform, then of course optimization can start happening. We can start providing real-time data on schedule and headway adherences. We can start providing data on correct arrival times, allowing you or all of the operators or the transit agency to start optimizing its performance and its operations. And then now, not really sure if the question is focused more on the operator or on the agency as from the city perspective, but both sides can benefit, because basically first you need to get the correct data, get the correct information to then be able to act on it. And we have seen significant improvements. And here again, Ahmed can probably share, because Cairo is also one of the cities with large congestion and pretty crazy traffic situation. But even in these chaotic systems, with implementing the real-time data with correct information, they were able to significantly improve the quality of service that they provide. Of course, then increasing the public perception of these services, and then also utilization, which hopefully then translates also to profitability.
If I may add, in a city such as Cairo, a lot of things are happening right now in terms of infrastructure projects. And having, in my opinion, having consistently bad traffic is much easier problem to solve than having a changing status of traffic every day, because it's much easier to predict. The beauty of what we have found with Elleity's solution is that the ETA engine is so powerful that when you go in and analyze for example, the schedule adherence per stop or per RDV, it will display it in a way. For example, the system has shown us that there is a certain dip in speeds, in overall speeds, in a certain stop, in a certain day of the month, like the last Wednesday of the month. And to us, this was never going to be predicted or tracked by any other solution, in my opinion. And we investigated further. We realized that the Minster's cabinet meets near this bus stop the last Wednesday of every month. So so such a thing was included in the service schedule, where we inject an additional bus into the service schedule for this specific route on each Wednesday of on the last Wednesday of every month, to accommodate this predictable traffic. We saw it adopting very quickly to when COVID happened and the very first lockdown, when for 3-4 days the buses were being shown that they are early all the time because they are not used to this kind of empty Cairo, if I would say. But in a matter of 3-4 days, the system has adopted, okay, that this something is happening, and the times have significantly somehow gone a lot shorter, and then it helped us to build newer, more responsive, more reliable data-based service schedules that we then share with the end user. And when it comes to apps or integration with other platforms, again, what really matters to the passenger sitting on the street waiting for the bus to come is not when it is scheduled to come, as much as is when will it come. I don't really care about the schedule. I really about the real-time prediction, and this is super from Elleity's side.
Well, thank you to all of the speakers and the attendees. We just reached the end of the webinar. I think we gathered really nice feedback from all of the speakers. On one side, from, let's say, Fátima, that was showing us best practices and fare collection implementation in Africa. Then Nico put down like a very relevant trends that can happen, that will happen in the next years, such as fostering technology adoption, also in informal transit. So he thinks that there is a lot of potential for passenger information systems, for AVL systems, and also automated fare collection. And then Ahmed gave us a very comprehensive insights how actually a bus operator in Africa can handle, let's say, new technology, and also a very important adoption of this new technology to also, let's say, learn people to use public services and boost the passenger numbers. And then also Tomaz presented the smart city solutions that are being actually deployed in Africa. I think there are several opportunities out there. Definitely, there are all the speakers are already very knowledgeable of the market and so on. And there is also a very bright future for public transportation in Africa. And I will conclude the webinar with this. So thank you for the attendance, and get in touch with us if you would like a demo or a consultation. Subscribe to our newsletter, and see you at the next webinar. Have a wonderful. Bye bye.
Bye.